Okay, so in this video I'm going to talk about what delta time is. So in the last video we said that we could actually move the human or the alien in a direction, and we could do this in the update method. So the way we do this, the way we actually do this is by accessing the transform component of the human or the alien. If we go to the Unity editor and we select the human, for example, we can see that the human has a transform component. Right now, for example, the position of the human is at -5.72. So if we go back here, we can see that that we can access the transform position of the human, and so we can say transform.position.x equals transform.position.x. So we're saying that the transform.position is equal to its transform.position plus 1. If we do this, this means that this method is gonna be called 60 times per second, 60 or 57, depending on the speed of your computer. So the object will move 60, more or less 60 units to the right in 1 second. Why? Because this method is being called 60, 57, 58 times per second, and each time it's being called is moving 1 unit to the right. So it is moving very, very fast. So we have another way to do this. Instead of depending on the frames, if we want to move according to the seconds that pass, we can do this by multiplying the speed times time dot delta time. The way we do this is by actually accessing the transform position. We say the same thing. The transform position is equal to its transform position plus, and we add 1 times time dot delta time. So I could explain time dot delta time in a very detailed way, but it's going to be very confusing. So just know that it's a very important thing to do, and that by doing it, what we're actually doing is that we're moving x units in 1 second. So in this case, we're moving 1 unit per second. So every time we multiply times time dot delta time, we're moving x amount of units per second. And time dot delta time is just the time in seconds between each frame. Okay, so let's try to move the human, for example, to the right in the update method. So let's go to the Unity editor, and the first thing that you notice here is that we cannot see the human. So how can we see the human? So you select the human, and we want to see something here. So for example, we could try to put in a square in here. So one way that we can do this is by selecting the human and clicking add component, and then we type in sprite renderer. So we select the sprite renderer, and you can see that the sprite renderer is a component that has many different fields. But one field, the main field of the sprite renderer, is the sprite, and now it has none sprites in here. So we can select the circle, or we can drag our square to the field. So let's click the circle and select the square, and when we select the square, we instantly see that the square is here where the human is. So basically the human object is at position, it's centered at the position of the square. It's centered in the square. So whenever we move our human, we're moving the square, which is amazing, really. And now here in the sprite render, we can actually go ahead and change the color. Okay, we can change the color of the square to a more reddish color like this. And now if we hit play, you will see that the game view appears. So now the scene view changed for the game view, and we can see our game object here, just that it's doing nothing right now. So let's click play again, and what we can do is that to avoid going from scene to game and from game to scene, we can just drag the scene like this and place it here on the left, and we can have the game view on the right, or vice versa, the way you prefer it. And here you can see that the square is right next to the border here in the game. So the game basically is just representing what the camera is focusing on. So in the scene we have the camera. The camera is this white boundary over here. So if you select the main camera, you can see that this is the boundaries. So the camera will focus, and the boundaries will be, the boundaries of what we see will be the boundaries of the camera. If you go ahead here in the transform component of the camera, you can see that if you go next to the edge of the position, for example in the x-axis, there are two arrows that appear, and you can, if you hold the left click, you can drag. You can change the position of the camera along the x-axis, and as you change the position of the camera on the x-axis, you can see that the game view changes. And this is because, as I told you before, the view of the game view is defined by the boundaries of the camera, by the camera itself. So let's change the position of the camera back to 0, 0. And what we're gonna do now is we're going to try to move our human to the right. So we're going to do this by going to Visual Studio. We're going to go to the human class, and inside the human class we're going to define the update method. So to define the update method, just type in update, and now we have our update method here, and we want to set the transform position to 1 to the right. So let's say transform dot position dot x, because we want to move along the x-axis, is equal to transform dot position dot x plus, let's try to do it without the time dot delta time for now. So let's try to just do it like this and see what happens. What should happen is that everything moves very, very quickly. So here is giving us an error. I don't know why. Okay, it's giving us an error because this is conceptually correct, but it is not programmatically correct. Okay, everything that I said here, the way we actually do it in Unity, the way we actually do it is by we cannot actually do this because transform.position.x, we cannot do it like this. But what we can do is set the transform.position equal to a new vector2. So we say new vector2, and inside vector2 basically is just a vector in 2 dimensions. It has an x component and a y component. So in the x component, we want to set it to transform.position.x plus 1. So like this. And in the y component, we want to set it to 0 because we don't want to move along the well, we could say just instead of 0, transform.position.y, because if we say 0, then it's going to be something different. Okay, so we don't want to alter the transform.position.y of the square of the human, but we want to alter the transform.position.x. Okay, so now that we have this, we can hit Ctrl S, we can go back to the Unity editor, and then we can just hit play, and you can see that the human, or in this case the square, flies to the right. Okay, it goes very, very fast. You can see it in the game view, it just flies to the right, and this is because we're moving 60 units in 1 second. So the way to actually avoid this is by multiplying by time.delta time. So we're going to do this by multiplying by time.delta time like this, and now it's going to move 1 unit in 1 second. So instead of 60 units in 1 second, it's going to move 1 unit in 1 second. So it's gonna go way slower and much smoother. So let's hit Ctrl S, go to the Unity editor and hit play, and now you can see that the square moves smoothly to the right, which is the effect that we want. If we want the square to go at a faster speed, the only thing that we need to do is to change this 2 for a 5, for example, and then go back to the Unity editor and hit play. And we can see that now the square goes way faster. Okay, so this is gonna be it for this video. I'll see you in the next video.